Welcome to long-awaited Lair live show. It's been a while, although there's been many sessions, as you know, but this one, like the proper Lair, it's been a while. It's been maybe 3 weeks. So welcome everybody once again. A lot of things happened since the last session, actually. As I said, I think it was 3 weeks ago, and during these times, of course, a lot of things changed, especially during a pandemic, right? So welcome everybody. Actually, yesterday there was a special session for those of you that are watching this today at the moment. There was a special session dedicated specifically to what I called an open day regarding the tech corner. Not the tech corner. Tech corner is going to be today. I'm sorry. I'm a little bit tired, as you can see. Regarding the next level program, there was a special session yesterday that you can find, by the way, for those of you that didn't get the chance to watch that live. You can still get that on our YouTube site. I believe it's still there. It's definitely there. I don't think it's attached to any. This music is distracting me, I have to say. But I was saying that I don't think it's attached to any playlist, so it's going to be fairly easy for you to find. Guys, sorry, some of you apparently are really into the music, which is great. That was the whole purpose. But let me just switch this off from my headphones, otherwise it's super confusing for me. Let me just... Where is it? Yeah, so now you can hear, but I can't, so it doesn't distract me as much. So as I was saying, you can find, for those of you that would like to know a little bit more about that, I believe Sabine also posted that on her LinkedIn and maybe Facebook. I also did that. I actually didn't, but Sabine did, and it's very easy to find on our YouTube channel. Okay, so yeah, so the enrollments are going. We are fast approaching the last third of spots available for the total amount of people that are meant to be in class. The private forum is already running with some of these people that are already enrolled. Some others will join later on, but yeah, things are moving finally. Still a lot to do on my end, I have to say, but everything's ready to start on the 4th of January. Okay, so what we're gonna talk about as an intro, as usual. So a lot of things, as I said, a lot of things happened during this last session, which was like around, as I said, 3 weeks ago. So pandemic-wise, of course, the second wave is hitting hard as predicted. We talked about this many times in here. A lot of people were saying that that time, and I understand the reasons why they were saying that you know, a new lockdown or new lockdowns were unlikely, but I always thought that you know, there's no other way around, and it turns out that I was correct, but I wanted to be wrong, to be honest. But it turns out that I was correct, and it's easy to understand why is actually happening again. It's because, you know, the cases, the overall status of what we're living at the moment has never been as severe as we have it now. So if things closed or if there were lockdowns happening before, of course, now that we are in a worse situation, of course they're gonna happen as well. So yeah, so pretty bad. We now have more than 70 million cases worldwide, which is, I mean, words fail to describe this, honestly. It's unbelievable. So Europe at the moment is suffering a lot. Europe was, of course, the epicenter, one of the first ones after, you know, the outbreak in China. Europe was the one next, and I think we already saw this picture, so I think this is going to repeat again. Then it's going to travel to the other side of the world. Maybe, I hope I'm wrong again. and of course Christmas is not going to help, because people want to be close to each other, they miss each other, for of course good reason, but yeah, it's a complicated situation for sure. I just read today actually that the worldwide tourism shrinked to 1990 levels, which is unbelievable. To think that honestly, to think that, you know, the tourism levels are in the same place as they were in 1990. Unbelievable. Anyway, what other things happened during this past couple of days? Emmanuel Macron, French president, tested positive a couple of days ago, I believe. So of course we wish a speed recovery to French president, other presidents and other people from other countries, because of course they interact with each other. They had to self-isolate because of this situation. The Portuguese Prime Minister was one of them, apparently tested negative. Mentioning Portuguese Prime Minister because it's the Prime Minister from my country. And also in the US, things are in a terrible place, as we all know. And this was almost predictable, given, you know, the fact that things were approached in the way that they were approached in the very beginning. But at the same time, you know, despite, if you think about this, despite all the different restrictions of all different countries, pretty much every country is not in a good position. So yeah, it is what it is, I guess. It's a pandemic, so of course there's always things that we can do better, and that we should focus on for the benefit of everyone, not just the self-benefit or the benefit of our close family, but everywhere, because we know that this is going to be propagated to more than just, you know, the ones around us. What else? So London also moved to Tier 3, which is the most restrictive new pandemic rules, which means that some of the shops will be closed, which is probably unprecedented given that we are in Christmas time. There are also travel restrictions and other restrictions, but these are like the main ones. I think some shops can be open, although with very specific rules, but the majority of the shops will be closed, which is, again, during Christmas, is something unprecedented, I think. And also, of course, this will affect the economy of the country, obviously. Because of that, the furlough scheme was also extended in the UK for another month, which means it will be until the end of April, which I believe there's good and bad with this scenario, because of course, you know, this has to be compensated somehow after all of this is you know, behind us. And the Chancellor already said that there are tough times ahead to be expected because of the reason that I've just mentioned, I guess. Also, regarding the UK, the Brexit is reaching a tipping point. Negotiations have been extended for some more time. I believe maybe it's until the end of the day. I don't know, guys, if you have any more information about this. I believe it was, because I'll be honest, even though I pay close attention to this subject, this is something that has been changing, you know, so much and so often that I'm kind of lost sometimes exactly on the days to which, in this case, to which this was extended. But we'll see how this goes. I believe it's until the end of the day. I might be wrong, but I think it seems like the main issue now is the fishing part of, like, the access to international European waters and vice versa. And it seems because of that, although, you know, the talks have been extended, as I said, but it seems like a no deal is imminent, and Boris Johnson already said that, actually, and the European Union said that as well. I think it's you know, both parties, they want this to not happen, but there's only much they can do, I believe, to, you know, to go ahead with the things that they believe that they are fair. But if no deal goes ahead, this can put the UK in a very difficult position, because of course the taxes will have to be increased, and because of that a lot of the products that have been trading, you know, in the ways that we all know until now, you know, the cost of those operations will increase, and this probably will put a lot of industries in the UK in a very tough position. But we'll see what happens. But in the middle of all these negative things, or not so good things that we're talking about here, there's a very good news, which is we have a vaccine, or more than one actually, and it's been already been taken from some people, and it started in the UK, I believe in Scotland to be more precise, and yeah, so that's very, very good news. Also, it seems like there's some reactions to the vaccine, some allergic reactions. We'll see how that goes, I guess, but it's very soon to tell. Of course, it was approved, so if it was approved, we have to believe that you know, people who do these kind of things, who are in charge of these kind of things, they know what they're doing. But like any other medicine, I would say, in vaccines, and you know, anything that you put in your body can cause allergic reactions to some people, and maybe this is one of those cases. Let's believe that's only what it is. I found out like maybe 5 years ago that I was allergic also to something that I've never been allergic to. So things can change also with age. We'll see, and I hope that's the case. Let's hope that there's nothing more than just some allergic reactions to some people, which is unfortunate, but let's see. Let's hope that's the only problem. Okay, what else do we have here today? I believe that's it. No, let me just expand this a bit. And yeah, it seems like that's it. So for the pandemic, no, actually there's more, because of course I have to talk about what happened to our industry, right? Like what's the status on our industry? Well, it seems to me that there are some things about to move. Can't really tell what it is, but I can't find the news here. But at the same time, the main question, or the main doubts, at least on my part, they're still here, which is what happens if you know, the numbers are up as we are seeing at the moment. Of course, you know, things that are in production at the moment, of course they will suffer. And we just heard, I think it was a couple of days ago, during the new Mission Impossible filming, that Tom Cruise, and this is on tape, Tom Cruise just lost it with the crew because apparently they were not respecting the COVID rules. And of course, you know, the movies industry, which is also related with what we do, of course, it's suffering quite a lot, and of course nobody wants that. So that's why he flipped out, I guess. But yeah, I don't really understand at the moment what's the pace of things. For on one hand, it seems like some things are about to happen. On the other hand, I know for a fact that some companies are not in a good position of like keeping everybody as they would like to. It's a good thing on that front that you know, the furlough scheme in the UK has been extended, but I'm not really sure about what's going to happen or what's happening at the moment. Like in more than what I just said. We'll see how it's going to be. Listen, the good news here is there's only good news from now on, I believe, slowly but surely, because we have a vaccine. You know, the markets, of course, will respond accordingly sooner or later. So I think, you know, we are on a good track to have this behind us very, very soon. Hopefully, very soon. Okay. So technical highlight of the week, as usual. It's actually something very cool. One of our viewers, Jacob, and I mentioned this yesterday as well, felt inspired by, I believe it was I believe it was the last episode of Lair. He felt inspired by learning, you know, the things that one can do with SD maps, and he did something with it, something that he never thought about if it wasn't for the show, it seems. So thank you very much for mentioning that, Jacob, and it's great to see. That's the whole point of the show, I would say. Well, there's more than just that, but that's obviously an important piece of this whole equation. And it's great to see that some of you are feeling inspired to do new things with different angles, and I'm showing it. That's exactly also the purpose, by the way, of the Next Level program, is to give you these insights that you can translate them to other things, things that probably, if you never thought about that subject, that's probably already you've seen, like ST maps, but you never thought about the angle that I'm showing. Your mind will expand to different and better things. So that's great to see. I believe there was another viewer of ours, Chris Stryer, actually, that was also inspired by the show a few weeks ago, or maybe more than 1 month ago, to do what was it? It was a video explaining the time blur and other applications that you can do with it. This was something, by the way, I have to mention that it was not something approached in any of the tech corners or anything like that, but it was a guest on the show, and I challenged him, I would say, to create a video explaining a little bit more in detail how it works with a node that normally is very neglected, I would say, by me also. I have to say, it's something that I use very rarely. So it's this type of relationship that the show is all about, and it's great to see. So I believe it's easy to see or to search for this video from Jacob. If anyone has that link, please post it here, and let's actually say hello to everybody. Wow, there's so many people here. Okay, so let's read some of you. Hello everybody once again. So we have people from India, from Italy, from the UK, from Germany. Great, yeah, nice. All right, we have VFX for Filmmakers.com show. So great to see you here. And it's great. So Chris is also here, so there you go. And he says that I'm not one to turn down a challenge, especially when such a powerful node is so overlooked. Yeah, so there you go. That's exactly the whole purpose of the show. So thank you guys for all your messages and all your support, really. Today actually we're going to talk about, because Tech Corner is back, okay? Today we're going to talk about something that probably the base of the technique to accomplish things that are actually related with what Jacob did somehow. But we're going to talk about some things changing slightly that approach to do some other things that probably you can maybe expand your mind to do other things. Well, okay. So let's see if everything's ready, and we're gonna have obviously we're gonna have a new guest. Okay, that is always a surprise, so we have to wait and see who's on the other side, or who's gonna be on the other side. Okay, so let's see if everything's ready. I believe you're gonna enjoy this one as well. By the way, let me tell you something. The things, it's not easy to do this, okay, I have to say, but the things that I show here are not the same that are going to be shown in the great majority. 99% of the things that the program is all about are different things that I'm showing here, which is not an easy thing to do because the program is so thorough. We're talking about more than around 180 lessons. It's not easy to. It's not an easy thing to do. So, and it's a conscious effort on my part to not repeat the content, obviously. Okay, some things can be related, but it's a different kind of a thing. And this is today. It's one of these examples again. As I said, 99% of the content is not the same. There might be one or two things that, although the video is never the same, but there might be some things that. The subject is basically the same, tackled in a very similar way, but never the same, as I said. And we're talking about maybe 1% of the whole content, maybe less. Maybe I think it's out of all these lessons, I can think maybe of just one or a couple, maybe, and that's it. Okay, all the rest is completely brand new. Okay, so let's see if everything's ready for the Tech Corner. I believe everything's ready. So guys, hope you enjoy it, and then we're gonna have our guest afterwards. Okay, See you in 2 seconds and enjoy it. Today we're going to talk about something that, although it's simple as usual, it has a lot of applications, and some of them you're probably already using it, and we're going to talk about that initial usage of this technique. But we can also use this technique to accomplish different things and can be very useful things as well. So I'm going to tell you a couple of examples. The first part of this example will be like the most traditional application of this technique, and it's a technique that I normally call inverse Premolt. But before the inverse part of this technique, we're going to talk about the foundations of the technique itself. So in a situation like this, in which we have a key, it's a very rough key, it doesn't really matter for now. It's not meant to be perfect by any means, but what I want to tell you about is if we have a Premolt like this and then we drop a blur and then an unpremolt, we're going to have something that you probably already know, which is an edge extension. There's variations on this technique to accomplish an edge extension, but the base is more or less the same with some differences here and there. But if you now open the blur and start blurring, you see that you're going to expand those pixels on the edge, and everywhere it's going to be blurred as well. But we're going to grow these pixels in here, and if you want to do an edge extension, what you would do then is to put the original one on top. And then in here, if you want to have a better blend, you can maybe use an erode just to get rid of that intersection there. And then if you copy your alpha again and Premolt it again, you're going to have this taken care of, and now you can, grow more or less. And of course, you're going to affect this at the moment, but just focus on the edge itself, because that's the foundation of the technique that I'm telling you about. The core part of what we should focus, as I said, is this part in here, which is this combo here. Like if you have a blur before an unpremolt, the more you blur, the more extension you're going to have on those edges. And as I said, there's many variations you can have with this technique to get better results, but this is the core of this effect. So this is something that probably you all know, but we can do something slightly different, although with the same foundation, to accomplish a different thing, an inverse thing, and that's why I called it inverse Premolt. So in this example here, I have a plate like this, and I have two versions. I have a denoise version and a normal version of the plate with the noise. So the first thing that I want to do is to isolate the noise, because I want to apply what we are about to apply on the denoise version, and then we have to add the noise back on top. So I'm just going to minus this here, and then if I invert these inputs, I'll have just the noise by itself. Okay, so it's saved and stored. So now I can do whatever I want to do within this version, because I know that I have the noise put back on top if I want to. So let's now follow the same kind of technique we saw before, and this time let's say that I want to just remove this area in here, alternatively to a paint job. Of course, with the paint, what you would do is very simple. With a clone, you would do something like this, and it's completely valid, of course, but we're going to explore a different way of doing this type of job that in some situations, not all the situations, but in some situations, we can get rid of a lot of things in just one go. So let's say that we want to clean these areas, okay? And then I'm going to do the same technique as we saw before for the edge extension, but with a slight variation. So first of all, we're going to copy this alpha here, okay? And then of course, if we Premolt it, we're going to have this. No surprises here. So if we continue applying that technique, we're going to have a blur, and then we're going to have an unpremolt. So the more you blur, as we said before, the more those edges will grow. And now you're going to get rid of that on the inside as well, because it's blurred. So one thing that you can do, if you want to copy this alpha here again and then on top. So it's a patch, but it's not. This is the same thing as you using a blue image and then use this rotor shape as your mask. Okay, it's exactly the same thing, and that's not a very good job. So what we can do is, instead of applying this directly like that, I'm just going to put this back to 0. And now I'm going to use an invert node in here on my alpha channel, and I'm going to have a version of the plate like this. If I now use the same combo and see things through the unpremolt, you see that the more you blur, now we're going to have that area being sucked in, and with that, you're going to clean that area that we are talking about. Now, if we do the same thing, which is copy that region and then use a Premolt after that, we're going to have that region isolate it. And now if we put this as a patch on top of our footage, we're gonna have a much better result. You see, you don't see limits, you don't see differences in color, so it's a very good way of doing this. So what you can do now, very easy, is to drop a few of them if you want. You want one in here, done. You want another one in here, done. You want to clean this one here, done. If you want to go now on a different color, you can also do that. Let's do this one in here, done as well. You see that now that we have like this difference in color and we are at the very edge, we're gonna have this type of situation. So that's why I'm saying that although this is a technique that works in some situations, it doesn't work for all the situations, but this is possible also to take care of. But now you can clean a lot of things based on a luminous key, for example, much easier in just one go. Let's say that we want to isolate all the black areas in here, in this area. I'm going to use a key here based on the luminous to just isolate those black areas in this wall in here. And let's say that we want to affect all of these regions in just one go. So you would select a rotor shape like that. So now if you use a channel merge, you multiply these regions and you isolate all of that stuff. And now if you want to use this technique, you just need to swap these guys, and then you can have this. But this is not very good because this is not taking the alpha to its maximum. So you have like this type of transparency. So if you want to go on this route, you have to make sure that those areas are really pushed to the maximum value in alpha, meaning to 1. So we're going to push them like that, and maybe you can expand them as well if it's needed, and I can see it's needed. So we're going to expand this a bit more with an arrow, and now we have a good job, but there's some holes in here. This is when you want to go with this blur so we can suck them in a bit more. Then it's done. So after you're done with the settings, now you can include other regions if you want to. If I want to include now the other guys there, just do this and it's done. So very easily I can have this clean very quickly. And let's not forget that this is basically blurring our image in a different way, but it's blurring our image, so whatever grain that you have there, it's going to be destroyed. So that's why I isolated the grain like this, and that's when now you want to put the grain back on top before the Premolt. So let's use a plus, and we're going to have this plus to this result, and when you cut it, the grain will already be there, like that. This also works in other regions that have different colors. So let's say that now I want to just remove this. So I'm going to swap all of this by this rotor shape that I just did. This is what you're going to have, and now you can maybe expand these areas a little bit more, and then you adjust how much you want to shrink this guy. There's a limit of what you can do, but this one we already have the grain in it. So this is actually what's inside my tool that was always very popular. I don't know exactly why, but it does exactly what we are describing in here, and it's a tool called Pixel Healer. What this does is exactly the same thing. So if I want to, get rid of this area, I just have to have like an alpha on that input, and now it's gone. And then you adjust, of course, this to the best, and you'll see that the results can dramatically change depending on where you have these limits of your rotor shape. You see that now you're opening this hole, so it's time now to blend this even more. So this blend, it's exactly the same thing as this blurry in here. So why is this useful? If you can do like a simple paint like this, that will get you probably better results. Well, it's true, and as I said in the very beginning, this is not a technique that will work for all situations, necessarily speaking, but you see what it's happening in here. Of course, this was done very quickly, but you can see like a sense of tiling going on immediately. Of course, again, I did this very, very quickly. Could have been done much better, and should be better, and shouldn't be done like this. But what this will give you is, first of all, an heavy lifting of the effect, and then you do the rest on top of this. Plus, you have the ability of pulling Luma keys and other types of keys to get rid of a lot of things that you don't want, at least as a first pass. For example, these white things here on these tiles can be quickly pulled as a key with a Luma key here, and then you isolate just the parts that you want. For example, what you're going to do also after is to expand those areas a little bit and push this value up in alpha for the reasons that I just explained. And then if you use the technique that we've been discussing, that in here is just with the tool, you're going to get rid of those areas like that. And now if you want to put the grain, I have this already separated like that, and then you're going to have this result. Okay, so very easily you'll have have something removed like this, which is like a whole region. Is it the best job ever? No, it's not. Could have been done better still with the technique, but it's a very quick way to get rid of something very quickly and in specific regions, rather than using a paint node to do all of these things in every single instance. There will be applications in which this technique will actually be very useful, and one of them is also when you have like a very small area that you need to, get rid of something. So let's say, for example, this area in here, if you want to go on the traditional route with a roto paint, what you can do, of course, is to have this stuff in here like that, and you do the job like this. That's fine. But sometimes the area that you want to get rid of is so small that you don't have the adjacent areas with enough range for you to copy them on top of the one that you want to get rid of. Plus you're going to have the styling, filling, and all that stuff. So in that kind of situation, this technique is also useful. For example, I'm going to use the same thing, so a pixel healer node, and I'm going to say that I want to get rid of this stuff without necessarily speaking referencing to something that is adjacent to the area, because probably, and I'm making this up right now, I don't have the range to clone things from adjacent areas. So with the roto paint, I can do that thing. So I'm going to go with just this stroke, and instead of referencing to adjacent areas, I'm just going to put something on top of everything like this. And now I'm going to always copy the adjacent areas the best way that you can do. Sometimes you cannot do the best job ever, but then if you want to mess with this guy, maybe you can get at least a first pass that it's going to be very useful for you. But you're not referencing to adjacent areas to this type of situation. So there are applications for this. It's not in every situation that you want to use this, but very easily and in just one go you can get rid of a lot of problematic areas without referencing, necessarily speaking, one by one to the adjacent areas. Another example would be tracking markers. So now you can adjust this a bit more like this. You can play with the blur so you can have a more natural effect. You can also grow this with an road, and I'm doing this without ever referencing to the adjacent areas, and I still have all the variation in color from those same adjacent areas without, again, referencing to them necessarily speaking. But again, there will be times in which this is exactly what you want to do, because you can get rid of a lot of instances of fixes in just one go. There are other situations in which this is not the most convenient or useful thing to have, but at least it's another tool for you to, depending on the situation, evaluate and use it if that's the case. So I hope you like it, and now you know why I call this inverse Premolt. It's because there's this invert in the technique itself, but it's a very simple thing to do that can get rid of a lot of instances in just one go for paint jobs and quick fixes here and there without needing to referencing to adjacent areas, but still inheriting the color from the adjacent areas of things that you want to copy it from. Hope you like it, and see you next time. Hello again, guys. How was it? Did you like it? It's a bit different, right? Different as in, like, it's very simple, and it's not in every situation, as I mentioned many times, that you want to use this, but in some situations, and I've used this technique multiple times, always depending on the situation and for very specific situations. And one of the main ones, I would say, is when you don't have the range to copy things from the adjacent areas. This is when I tend to use this more often, because I don't have to reference to things that I don't have the range on the adjacent areas to visually and intrinsically referencing them, necessarily speaking, to do like a cover up or a quick fix here and there. But sometimes I refer this as inverse Premolt. This is a term that I use. I've never seen this in any other place, but when I was thinking about what else can I show today, this time, I thought about this because for some reason this tool that I showed you, Pixel Healer, was probably always the best or the most popular tool that I have, that I posted many years ago on my YouTube channel, not the Compler channel, but my Pedro Andrade channel on YouTube. And I thought this probably would, it's such a simple thing that probably would be a good idea to show, and I hope you liked it. Okay, so now it's time for our guest. Let's see if everything's ready. Everything seems ready. I'm not sure if the guest is ready, but let's assume the guest is ready. Okay, I'm sure the guest is ready. We'll see if there's any problems. Okay, if there's any problems, like with the things that sometimes happens, we'll try to solve them. So stay on. Okay, for some reason I'm already telling you this because this is not the first time that something like this happens, and it's a live show, so things like this and on the internet things like this can happen, but hopefully everything is going to be fine. And let's welcome our guest now. Okay, see you in 2 seconds. Robin, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm good, thanks.
Hey, good to see you. It's been a while. I was saying that this show for me a lot of times is an excuse to catch up with friends that for some reason life happens and we don't have that ability. So this is one of these cases again. So thank you for making time. I know that we had to go on this specific time for a specific reason that we're going to talk about that in just a second. But yeah, good to catch up with you, man. How have you been?
Yeah, I'm great, thanks, and thanks for having me. It's nice to hear from you and nice to talk to you.
Of course, man. Anytime. I think the last time, and when we were doing the quick call yesterday or a couple of days ago, I think I was mentioning that the last time that we were together was maybe a couple of years ago. Around that in at Nando's, right next to DNAG. But before you get into that, do you want to present yourself to everyone? Because we're talking about between you and me, but people would like to know more about who you are, probably.
Sure, yeah. I'm Robin Ashworth-Cape, and I'm a compositing supervisor at Milk VFX. I've been in VFX for about 10 years now, I think.
Yeah.
What is it? About 10 years. And I started in Roto and went up to comp, and then more recently at Milk, sort of moved over to compositing supervising, 2D supervision. And I'm not sure what else I can tell you. Yeah.
That's a good introduction, I would say, right? That tells you in a nutshell who you are, I would say. And one thing that you didn't mention, but I'm going to mention now, because I just found out this when we were having this call that I just mentioned now, that you were actually born, even though you're from New Zealand, you're actually born in the UK, right? And then it was after that you moved to New Zealand. And now you're back to the UK.
Yeah. Right? It's I bore myself when I sort of try and explain it to people. That's why my accent's a bit weird, because I was from England and then to New Zealand.
But I've never, you told me, of course, early on when we met that you're from New Zealand, but I never, got any hint of any accent from New Zealand from you, I have to say. Not that I'm a specialist on accents, by the way, but I've been to that side of the world, and I don't get that from you.
Yeah, some people think they have no clue what's going on here. And some people don't notice it. Some people pick up on it. I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, I moved to New Zealand when I was very young, and spent the next 25 years there, I guess, and then came back to England, I should say, 4 years ago.
That's when we met, actually, right? It was probably around that time, right? Because at that time, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe your first job in the industry when you were back in Europe, specifically back to London, was at Milk, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's when we met, yeah. Exactly. But taking a step back and talking about your time in New Zealand, and talking about and linking that with the industry and your experience, you started, of course, in the company that we all know, which is Weta in New Zealand, which is probably the only company. Like, I'm sure there's smaller ones, but as in the company as big boys.
Probably that's above, say, 100 people. maybe in New Zealand it is wetter, and they've got 1,500 or something people. So it really is the one place that you can get a job there, at least in Wellington, where I lived.
But how was that experience? Because, from someone that's just starting out and going straight into, a big name like Weta, how was that experience like early on? Because, some people, and we mentioned this on the show once in a while, some people, are from many different countries that watch the show. Some of them, the industries, they're very present, in some others, not so much. And one thing that people say sometimes is, how can I get to that country, or country, not as in, of course, everybody can take a plane. That's not the question. The question is more about how can I, present myself in order for me to be hired from a company like that. And of course, there's always, some risks involved. Like traveling is always a risk in terms of what's going to happen. You never know what's going to happen. But risk is also part of life. But one thing that people also mention is, or I feel some nervousness from them coming from a country in which the industry is not as present, to go to a country like, for example, or a city like, for example, London, in which the industry is so present. So, of course, a lot of self-doubt, start to set in, and, some nervousness because of that. How was your experience in that regards?
As in coming over to London?
No, as in like starting at...
starting. I think I would have had a different experience to a lot of people living there before I got the job. I was studying animation, actually, 3D animation.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was just with an aim to generally get into VFX, and I didn't really have a exact direction at that point. And so I was living in Wellington and thinking, hey, Weta is a kind of a, eventually I'll work there maybe, but what I'll do is get into VFX somewhere and then eventually work my way into Weta. And I think I got very lucky with the timing. It was the start of the Hobbit trilogy. At that time it was just 2 movies, so the Hobbit series of films. And I think I hacked together a little show of anything I could, really. Nothing specifically what they wanted, like not with any aim, any goal in mind, and just applied because I knew they were hiring for Roto, and I thought.
And I'm sure at that time they were in need of a lot of people, right? Because it was like a big job with many years. For sure that they knew that they had to work on that trilogy, right?
Yeah.
So it was a good timing, but luck is also part of life, and and always what I say regarding that specific point is, yes, luck is needed, and it's it's a good thing to have, but you have to work for that luck to be on your side, because if you don't do anything about it, that doesn't happen for sure. That's what we know for sure. But after 5 years you spent 5 years over there, right?
Yeah.
You've decided to come back to Europe. Why was that?
Yeah, it was. I think it's because
of the weather, right, and the beaches and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean,
London weather, right?
If you've been to Wellington, you'd know that it's not exactly a tropical paradise.
No, it's not. But
no.
Yeah,
no, it was kind of like we had been. We just felt like we needed a big sort of life change, and we thought we better do a life change while we're.
Yep, I've been there.
How old was I? Was I mid-20s? No, late 20s. We thought we better go and go explore the world. Go somewhere with a bit more going on generally, just while we have a bit of energy.
Yeah, that's very needed, right? Energy is like something that after a certain part of your life, especially when you become a father, right? Like you just became a new dad recently, and as I did as well. that energy, I don't know where it goes. Well, I know it goes on sleepless nights and other things like that, other fun things like that, right? But energy, yes, it's very important. I've been there, so I know exactly what you're saying. So you've decided to come back to London, to England, not
yeah. I never actually lived in London before when I was very young, but just generally, come back to this side of the world where, to England, to London. So it was more like we thought, what do we want to do next? And Laura, my wife, wanted to do some further study, and so she got a place at a university in London. And I thought, I said, I need to get a job somewhere. Where can I get a job? And it was kind of, in terms of, there's not that many in the world. There's at the time of Vancouver, I guess.
Yeah.
Vancouver, London, Los Angeles. I don't know.
This was around 5 years ago, probably, right?
Yeah. So Montreal, I don't think was really happening at that point. So it didn't cross our minds. And on that, I could obviously walk straight into the country with no visa worries, being a citizen, and Laura could get a visa also through her granddad, who was born here. So
cool.
Yeah, so it made things easy for us in that regard.
Still a big change, though, right?
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah, it's pretty crazy, actually.
But that's part of, and this is actually a good example because, as I said, risk is part of life. And you never know. Listen, everything turned out really great for you guys, and of course it took a lot of effort on your part. So that's a good thing, and it's all because of all the effort that you put on this change, and maybe this changed your life forever. Maybe, who knows, right? But the thing is, if you never take any risks in your life, you never know what's going to happen. And I think this is something that from the very beginning of this show I've been saying, and it's true. Not only because of that's what I believe in, but also because I've met, and you're one of these examples. I've met a lot of people that they did exactly what we're talking about, and I took a lot of risks in my life. Risks that probably people say you're fucking crazy.
But I know that you changed. You changed careers in quite a drastic way.
I did.
Times, maybe from engineering, right, to sound.
Well, yeah. So very quickly, for people that are watching this, that don't know the story, very quickly, I am a trained engineer, and I worked as an engineer as well. But then I thought that this was not actually what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I was always involved in music early on, so there was a time in my life, as you just mentioned, that I said, okay, this is now or never. So we've decided, me and my girlfriend at the time, now wife, we've decided to take a risk and say, okay, let's move to a different part of the world. I always wanted to do that in my part, and she did too. So we end up, at the time we were undecided between LA actually and London, and we decided to go to London because of visas and all that stuff. It wasn't such a big problem. Now, probably because of Brexit, it will be the same thing, the same problems. We'll see. No, but now I'm okay because I have like the settled status and all of that, so it's not a problem anymore. But at that time, that's exactly what took us on that path. And then, so the reason why I went to London at that time was to pursue a music producing career, which I did for a while. And then VFX happened as an accident. So all of these things would never happen to me, and this show definitely is one of these examples. Would never happen if it wasn't for me at that time taking that risk. I faced a lot of challenges because of that as well. I'm sure you did as well, right? Things that they don't come easy, but it's part of life, I guess. So, right? That's what I'm saying.
Totally. And there's definitely stresses that go along with it, and maybe it's not the easiest thing to do, but you think, why am I doing this sometimes?
Sometimes, you question that a lot of times, when things get a little bit hairy, right, you're like, what the fuck am I doing, right? And but that's also why life is so interesting. That's always what I say. Does it always pay off? No, that's again part of the risk, but you never know what's on the other side if you don't take that risk. That's basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's true. And there's definitely a part of you that would think, oh, if I played it safe,
exactly.
I would be thinking about what if I missed out on potentially. There's that something in the back of your head that you might not be able to get rid of, even though you might be kind of comfortable and slightly less stressed out. You'd be thinking, what if I tried that thing earlier? I don't know.
Yeah, and this is something that I tell to new people in the industry, because one of the cool things about the industry, our industry, it's exactly the ability of traveling between countries, because our industry is spread out in the very specific places, but around the globe. So that's if the chance is there, I would say, especially for young people, because it's, as you said, it's important to have the energy to do that, especially when you're young. You should definitely do that. Can be for just a couple of months, can be for a couple of years. You decide, it's on you, right? But I think it's usually important to get out of your comfort zone. I've always avoided to be too comfortable, I have to say, and probably this, too comfortable in any given situation. Of course, I'm not saying that I like to be uncomfortable all the time. That's not what I'm saying. But being too comfortable, for me, it's like a red flag. It's something, I'm not being challenged. I'm not, you know what I mean? So I think that's very important. And especially if you're young, I mean, I cannot tell you enough times how that kind of thing can change your life. We're just mentioning a couple of these things. Actually, this reminds me that apart from these couple of years in which we were at Nando's having lunch or something, one of the last times that we met each other was when we were in Sydney. I was in Sydney because I moved there, and then you were in transit to go to a wedding or something, right?
Yeah. Wedding in Sydney, and then home, back to New Zealand for Christmas, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and we were at the pub or at the hotel, as they call it, like there, right? And then you told me at that time that you were invited to have your first job as a supervisor at Milk, because I got out. I was a supervisor at Milk, and then you told me that, and you asked me for some advice, and I was like, I don't know what to tell you, man, because I read, I think I was your supervisor at in some jobs, and I knew your way of working, and I don't think, well, I don't remember because this was a while ago, but I don't think I gave you any advice, because I like, just go with the flow, find your own way, right?
I think that was a big part of it. And then you said something like, you said that you were putting a class together and I should sign up for it, called Comp Lair or something like that.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
A big part of it, I think, from what I remember, was like, just sort of, there is a degree of working it out for yourself and just finding a kind of a groove that you fit into in terms of your style of supervision, and kind of just go with the flow is a big part of it.
And you did it, and listen, it's working out because you're still doing that at the same place, right?
Yeah, I hope it's still working out. It seems to be working out so far. Yeah, there's often some periods where you think, what am I doing wrong? But no, it's working pretty well.
Yeah, I would say so too, as well. Yeah, guys. By the way, if you have any questions for Robin, this is the time for you to ask them on the chat. Okay. I was about to say, also because of what you just mentioned, this past year brought a lot of unique challenges to all of us, right? For all the reasons that we know. But when you mix that on top of becoming a new dad, that's like an explosion in the sky, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy. Yeah,
it's crazy, isn't it? This is actually a topic that it's not so often that we see people talking about that, like parenthood in an industry as challenging as ours. We're not the only ones, of course, with this kind of situation, but without a doubt that our industry is one of the industries that, it's very challenging in terms of number of hours sometimes, the pressure and all of that stuff. So, parenthood can be something very challenging during these times because, as we know, I'm also a new dad, not as new as you, but my kid is 4 years old now. But still, I mean, it's fatherhood and motherhood, especially motherhood. Of course, it's always young moms are also very targeted in reasons that are not fair at all a lot of times. But fatherhood sometimes is not easy as well, right? What can you tell? What can you tell about your experience in that regard? And then I offer mine.
Well, I guess I mean, this year especially, it's been sort of 2 in 1, you know.
Yeah.
And our boy Charlie came along, I think 2 or 3 weeks before lockdown in the UK. So
crazy to think about that, right?
Yeah, it was early March is Charlie, and we at the time it was kind of like, oh, you know, we were reading a lot about this coronavirus stuff. I remember leaving work and it was kind of like a distant thing on the horizon. It was like, you know, how bad is it going to get? All the news is saying it's going to get pretty bad, but it doesn't feel like it at all at the moment. There was no precautions at that point. No one was sanitizing hands, or masks were not a thing.
I remember. We all remember that very well, especially in London.
Yeah, and then so I left work at, I don't know, I think it was 6 p.m. Oh, I've got to go. I'm having a baby. See you later. And then within the 3 weeks that followed, I had 3 weeks off work, paternity leave, which is better than the statutory amount, which is 2 weeks. So yeah, thanks to Milt for giving me a little bit extra. But still, 3 weeks is like, oh,
that's nothing because you have everything to figure out, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. So within that 3 weeks, it all went crazy, and I think after 2 weeks, I got in touch with Milt just to say, hey, what's going on with work from home? And then, you know, they got back in touch and said, don't worry, we've got a great plan for everybody working from home. Everything's going to be fine. And to their credit, it was all amazingly smooth, all things considered. And by week 3, you know, when I was due back at work, we were all ready to go. Everybody had VPN connections and or Teradici boxes, everything they needed to get working from home, and there was, you know, very little pain.
Yeah, surprise! It turns out there's no problem, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure there was sort of blood, sweat, and tears from systems and pipeline to get things working. But those guys deserve a lot of credit for all the extra hours that they put in such a short period of time to make this possible. It's definitely a huge effort, but it turns out it's totally possible, right? That thing that people were so concerned about, like, what, working from home, VFX, no way. It turns out that there's no problem. We'll see how this will turn out from now on. I think the door is too big to now be closed again. At the same time, you know, working from home, whatever home might be, can bring a lot of challenges, or some challenges regarding taxes and all that stuff. So I think that's part of the equation to still figure out. Like you could have been, for example, in New Zealand and still doing your job, but at the same time, the laws in New Zealand are not necessarily the same, and are not the same definitely as the ones in the UK. So you know, those kind of that part of the equation is still yet to be figured out, but. I think it's totally possible. With time, it's totally possible. But one thing that I think we can see in a more immediate way is the flexibility of working from home, not being in the studio all the time, necessarily speaking. There's advantages on doing that. I'm not defending at the same time, especially when you're on supervision, but not only. I'm talking about more supervision because we have to have like meetings with people from other departments, with the clients sometimes, etc. And of course, it's not the same thing as doing that in a non-physical way. So you need to be present, like physically, because things are discussed in a more timely fashion that will benefit everybody. But a lot of things that we do in our jobs can be done remotely, no problem at all. You know what I mean? Absolutely, yeah. There's huge upsides to it. Actually, on that as well, a huge upside for me was being able to work from home with a new baby was, absolute godsend, really.
I can imagine, yeah.
Meaning I didn't have to commute in the morning into work. To take away coronavirus out of the equation, just being able to get up and have that bit of extra time in the morning to help out with baby duties and everything. And then every break time, any lunch times, I could give Laura a break, basically, because it's the first, I don't know how many months. I mean, right now, 9 months in, it's still
challenging, right?
A time thing, but in the first, say, 3 months, it was just, it's crazy, absolutely crazy.
It really is.
Any chance I can lend a hand and not have to go back and forth from work and sort of, it was massive, actually. Yeah.
Especially for couples, which is your case, in my case as well, in which we are far from home, so we don't have help from anybody. It's all on us. Like the way that you figure out about things, it's on us, because that's the expected, and you don't have any other chance because you've never done this before. You're a new dad. You're a new mom. You have to figure out things by yourself, and every kid is different, so you cannot really exchange. Because you also asked me that when you told me that you were about to be a father, you asked me for what kind of things can you tell me?
Pedro, how do I change a nappy?
No, you didn't ask those things. But I said, listen, the only thing that I can tell is that the sleep deprivation is a real thing and can really fuck you up. Right? That's probably the only thing that I told you. The rest is always different.
Took notes on that. I was like, okay, Pedro says, I was like, thanks for the advice, and see you later.
See you later, right? No, but it's very challenging. It's always challenging being a new parent, right? But in a situation in which you're away from home, you don't have family, and the friends that you have, they also have their lives, and maybe some of them, they also have their kids, and maybe they're in the same, facing the same time as you, figuring out, because probably they're new dads as well and new moms, right?
Yeah, and on that, we couldn't, given the pandemic, we couldn't get people around to just go, hey, can you
that's extra,
a minute while I do something, while I vacuum or cook dinner. We couldn't get people into their flat and have them help out because, no one's, especially with a baby at the time, it was very scary. We didn't know how risky that was for a little kid.
Of course, yeah.
So we're being extra careful, and so didn't have family to sub in and do some babysitting at the time. Actually, on that note, Laura's sister's actually living in London, so she was around, but also we were like, probably not a good idea if you are, coming into our flat and all that, given the virus.
Yeah, of course.
So it felt a bit lonely, and we didn't have that support, in the same way that you and your wife didn't have the same familial support there. Yeah, which it's just extra.
And
extra.
I didn't have that experience, fortunately, living that new phase of our lives during a pandemic as the one that you had to face. So that brings a whole new set of challenges that I don't even, I know because I have also a kid, but I don't have a kid so small. And it's 4 years after, he was born. Of course, we know a little bit more than 4 years ago, but still we're figuring out, but we don't have the pandemic. No, that's not what we had. What we had was, we took the decision to move to the other side of the world when we met. It was about your kid's age now. So there was also a whole set of challenges, which I don't advise anyone to do, by the way. In case you're wondering, I don't advise anyone to do that.
Right? 24-hour flight to Sydney, imagine. And then, how big were your suitcases?
If I start to think about that, I don't have an answer for you, because it's like a blur in my mind, honestly. Because you just did it, you know what I mean? You did it and it's done. You did it and it's done, for sure. We have a question for you, Robin. Supervising via online, challenges, slowdowns, speed ups. What can you tell about that?
I think, definitely some slowdowns. Just in terms of having a chat with people, I'd like to go around people's desks and just have a chat. And you can't really do that, you have to go through Hangouts and give them a video call, and it's just the fact that you are doing that's an extra little barrier between the communication. So I found that a little bit hard to start with. Just sort of quick communication, quick checking in on people. Hey, how you doing? Or quickly helping someone out, maybe at their desk. It's much harder to do when you want to share a screen or something like that, rather than just pointing at a screen.
It's much quicker, right?
Yeah. So I think there's a few challenges that we've yet to work out with supervision over Skype, over Zoom. And there's definitely some upsides to it as well. I think it's you can kind of. It might be easier to quickly organize a meeting of people. You don't have to sort of gather everyone up and that sort of thing. We can just going to go, hey, everybody, impromptu dailies, impromptu catch up, and just call everybody at once, sort of thing. Everybody's on the same Hangout or something, and you can just quickly get everybody in the same virtual space. It's maybe maybe easier than trying to get everybody in the same physical space quickly.
Yeah. And there's also other things that I don't know if you had the experience. I definitely had in the beginning of this whole working from home thing, because it was brand new, which was like the compression issues, like to review some shots and stuff like that. Of course,
absolutely.
Yeah. So this can be also a challenge. There are ways, so that one of the ways, for example, is to set up different profiles of connection. So depending on the type of job that you're doing, especially as a supervisor, you exchange those profiles of connection. So you have like a better connection with better quality, slower, but with better quality. So depending on the type of job that you're doing, especially as a supervisor, as I say, if you're doing on, tech checks and stuff like that, probably you would, exchange for a connection that it's a little bit slower, but with more quality. That's a way to work out the problem. But you definitely have these challenges also to consider, for sure.
And on that compression thing, it's still not quite there in terms of, sometimes dealing with clients as well. We would be, it would rely on their connection on their end, and often they would have a pretty bad connection or something like that.
Yeah.
And we would say, look at this bit over here. What do you think? And they said, oh yeah, it's fine. It's great. We like it. And then when they got the
final thing.
Yeah, or not even the final. They loaded up their QuickTimes in the edit suite, or however they were doing it. That was the problem. We didn't know how they were viewing these things. They would say, "Oh, wait a minute, this bit is not. It looks bad. What's wrong with it?" And we kind of have to say,
"Well, you sign out on that, right?"
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's like so that was a little bit of a headache in more recent times. I think because it's so hard to set up a CineSync or something like that where you both have the QuickTimes, the high resolutions, not the masters, but the good quality files. That would be one way to do it, but that involves sending through everything, doesn't it? Large file sizes. And what we were doing for the bulk of our reviews was essentially a shotgun playlist, shared playlist.
Which is also not ideal, because that's a compressed version. It's a QuickTime anyway. So we still have the same problem in that route, right?
Yeah, and then we would, on balance, to balance that out, we would have an RV session with the full resolution, and then we would cast that over Zoom, and we're still getting compression there, but at least it was high resolution or higher. And less compression, but then we would get stuttery playback, things like that, and it would rely on the host connection as well, and so it was a lot of issues with that.
Yeah, it's this whole thing definitely it did bring a lot of new challenges for everybody, but I would say that's a good thing, because if it wasn't for this, probably you'd never the people in charge of these things, like IT guys and all that stuff, they wouldn't spend the time figuring it out because it was not a problem. So now having the ability or the need to do that, this can open a lot of doors for us to work in a more reliable manner and with more reliable tools. Every time from now on, you know what I mean? So I think that's a good thing. But slowdowns, for sure, I totally agree with what you're saying. There's definitely some slowdowns. It's much easier and much faster to just be on someone else's side, say, look at this, this could be better. Here's a way, a suggested way how you can do it. So you don't have that luxury, and it takes more effort on even calls. It's a simple thing to do. It's just press a button and you're in a call with someone else. But it's not the same. There's some communication that has been lost just because of that. It's great to have that ability, but without a doubt, yes, I totally agree also with what you're saying. There's another question for you, which is, what do you think about the automation tools coming up? All these machine learning tools and all of that stuff, how an artist from a non-technical background can survive?
Oh, and so automated cleanup and automated roto potentially. I assume that's kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I still think they're a long way off. I don't know how far off. What's the one I've seen quite often? I think it's a Rotobot.
Yeah.
And that's year on year it looks better and better. But even in the most recent versions, it's just not good enough, and it won't be for a while. I think it's super impressive. It's amazing, really, isn't it? It's quite amazing that it does what it does. But
yeah.
I think what it does is going to be ready to be used in, film or TV or commercials. It's just not quite up to that level. I mean, what are we talking about? 5 years or more until it's good? I'm to be honest, I'm not too sure how far away a really good usable thing is. And I think when it does eventually come along, I think it'd be really, really good. I mean, it's going to mean that we focus more on making things look good. We'll do more comping and less roto, I guess.
Yeah, this is a question, I believe, Manoj, tell me if I'm wrong, but Manoj is from India. And of course, and I believe that Manoj is a roto prep artist, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong, Manoj. But of course, he's thinking, I believe, if I'm right in what I'm saying, he's thinking more about this type of situations in which, of course, these automation tools will come in and will help everybody. But at the same time, of course, this feels like their territory is being threatened by tools like that. What I would say, Manoj, since Robin already offered like an initial explanation, and it's something that sometimes we talk about this type of things in here. A lot of people feel threatened by something like this, and I get that. At the same time, let's not forget that, and just to mention something that you just mentioned now, Robin, I think it's going to be less than 5 years, because let's not forget, but this is like a hunch. I don't know, right? Nobody knows for sure. I'm not on the front line of developing tools like that. I'm developing other things, but not that. And what I can say is technology, as we all know, the growth of new things coming up, it's not linear, it's exponential, right? So I think we can see, good quality stuff in that regards, cleanup and roto and all that stuff sooner than 5 years, from now. With that said, I think, with those tools, there will be other things for people that were doing those tasks that they can be useful on doing. So there's no point on feeling threatened by something like that, even if you're not a technical guy on that front. I am not. I'm a technical guy, but I'm not a technical guy on that front, on machine learning. It's something that I want to, develop more and more, but I cannot say that I'm a specialist on that front either. So what I can say is that it will open other things for you to do. It's not. There's no point on being threatened by something like that. It's going to happen whether you want it or not. So might as well of you taking the time, and this is actually a very good time to do that, to learn new things. Of course, you cannot go around an industry that, if that's the case in which the place you live, if there's no industry, of course, you cannot change the industry there, but you can change yourself. And you can stand out yourself to become a more complete artist or professional, whatever medium or work that you do during this time. To when that time comes, you already know how other things that you can be useful as a professional, right? But this thing will happen for sure. But I don't feel this as a threat to anybody, because by the time that this is implemented, it will help the industry overall, everybody, right? And there will be a lot of other things that will come along with it that they're not here yet, because those tools are not developed. So it's going to be a transformation and not like an elimination, if you will, of jobs. It's going to be something different that will benefit everybody eventually. With some pain points here and there, I'm not denying that, of course.
I think you're right. Like, there will be a sort of adjustment where things become much more efficient through technology. That means that we, or the industry, is able to focus their attention on other parts which may need more work. We're doing less of the roto and the cleanup, but that means that things might look better as a result, because we are spending more time in the comp and lighting, that sort of thing. And just because it's sped up one of the cogs of the machine has sort of become more efficient.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly how I view it as well.
And operate smoother. Is that an analogy that makes sense?
I think so. And I agree exactly with what you're saying. It's more about, it will benefit the overall picture, and some individual or more specific points here and there. With also, and I'm not going to deny, with also eventually some pain points here and there for some people from some industry. But it's a transition period. I mean, it's going to happen, and we have to put this in our mind. It's going to happen, but that doesn't mean it's the end of anything. It's the beginning of a lot of new things. That's how I view it. Not the end, but the beginning of a lot of new things. So that will be my answer combined with Robin's. Okay, and yes, Manush just confirmed that he's from India and he's a roto paint artist. So don't feel threatened by this, Manush. Just keep working on new things that I'm sure you are already, some of them you would like to know a bit more. So this is definitely a good time for you to invest in yourself by learning more and more different things, because when the time comes, you already have that on your side. And this was a good chat, man. I liked it. Let's give just a couple more minutes for people to have like the final questions. And I promised Robin that I will try to keep my timing in a responsive manner, but I'm going a little bit overboard. I'm sorry about that. Thank you so much, and that's what Manush is saying. Thank you so much. And what's your view about virtual production? That's the final question.
It's really exciting, isn't it? I think it's kind of in a similar way to, in the same way that it's technology that can make things more efficient. I think, like the machine learning, it's going to help some productions. I mean, as it is currently, it works amazingly for some things and not at all for other things. And I think increasingly we'll see things move towards that, because it makes a lot of economic sense to shoot like that, I believe.
Yeah.
I think once the initial costs or something are out of the way, or once a production is geared up to use virtual production, I think we'll see a lot more of it going forward, and it's hand in hand with real-time technology.
That's
getting amazing now, isn't it? I think it's just it's one of those things. It's going to make things more efficient. There's still going to be a huge need for post-production. people who can key and can clean up and can all those things, do comping, paint roto. We're still gonna need a lot of that, but
it's a tool, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's a tool. Yeah,
and it's gonna make some things much smoother, and some other things it's gonna displace some things, but not to that much of a degree, I don't think. I think it's gonna just kind of grow the amount of productions that are using VFX because it's making VFX easier or cheaper or more accessible to a lot of productions.
Mm-hmm. Which will make the industry grow on that regards as well.
Yeah. It's going to create other specializations. I'm a virtual production.
Yeah, it's already happening. That's already happening. Yeah.
And so that's going to be a huge increase and a kind of huge new field for VFX to go into. And I don't think it's going to really take away that much from existing flows.
Yeah.
To it.
Exactly.
I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of the transformation that we were just discussing. All of those things are, in the way I see it, is they're tools. They're going to benefit a lot of things. That doesn't take away the jobs that we all have. That if anything, this is going to make the productions a bit more complete and a little bit more pain-free in some regards. Again, I'm not taking away the fact that maybe this will cause some pain points here and there, but as an overall thing, I think it's going to mean better things for everyone, right? As a general kind of a thing, and they are all just tools, and I'm sure there will be times, because that's all our experience as well. Although you have like all the things that you think you wanted on the production, and you have like the background all good and all set and everything, and then at the last minute, the director or someone decided to change their mind, then you have to throw everything away, all the cool production, all the set design, all of that stuff, everything goes to shit, because now it turns out there's a new background that we're going to need, that it has nothing to do with the one that was shot. So that can happen also, you know what I mean?
And you roto everybody off.
You have to roto everybody.
Yeah. I can see that happening quite a lot, and especially now, while they get the kinks ironed out and all that sort of thing. There's going to be some disasters.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. It's a tool. It's a kind of a new thing, and it's going to maybe displace a little bit here and there. But ultimately, it's going to be a new avenue of production and a new avenue for work. And
for sure.
It will grow the whole pie. Yeah. The VFX pie.
Agree with you. Totally agree with you. Okay, cool. It was a good session. Thank you so much, Robin, for coming up. I won't take more of your time. I know that your baby is in need of you, and this mom is there. It's calling you. What? Yeah. But anyway, thank you so much for coming in. It was great to catch up with you. It's been a while, as I said in the beginning, so it's great to know that you're well, your family is well, Laura is good as well. Give my best to everybody. And hopefully the next time that we're going to see each other is going to be at the pub. All right? Yeah. Because I miss those days, I have to say. Next year for sure. Yes. Let's try to do that. Guys, so we are approaching the end of the year, by the way. So that doesn't mean that this will definitely be the last episode of the season, of season 1 for Lair. But there might be a chance that there will. Okay, I don't want to say that this is a goodbye for season 1. I'm not gonna say that yet. But definitely, we are approaching the end of the year, and we are approaching the beginning of the next level program that will take me, at least in the beginning, some more focus on that side of things. There's still time, by the way, for you to enroll. We are fast approaching the last third of available spots. So if you want to know more about this, go to complairvfx.com and you'll have all the information through there. All right. Apart from that, we also have Discord and all of that stuff, so you can find us in all of those places. All right. Once again, Robin, thank you so much. Guys, thank you so much for all the messages and everything. And I'll see you next time. Stay on, yeah? Robin, don't go anywhere, because we're going to have our final chat, okay? It's one of the perks of being the host of the show, yeah? I can have extended conversations with people. All right. Okay, guys. Bye bye. See you next time.